Welcome back guys! Nandito na naman tayo sa panibagong linggo ng ating panibagong lesson. So papasok na tayo sa ating module 4 which is entitled Let's Get Physical. So ano-ano nga bang expectation natin para sa module na ito? So at the end of the module, the student will be able to number 1 is to plan unit assemble to ensure OHS policies and procedure are followed in accordance with system requirement. Number 2, prepare an unit assembly to ensure OHS policies, ganun ulit, in accordance with system requirement. Number 3 is to identify materials necessary to complete the work in accordance ulit and establish procedure and check against system requirement. Number 4 is to obtain materials necessary. Number 5 is to obtain tools. So parang medyo similar siya dun sa last week lesson natin, which is about safety comes first. So this week, iba na yung lesson natin although may similarities sila. So ano una nyo gagawin? Ganun ulit class, pre-test. So I already uploaded the module, so maaari nyo nang sagutan yung pre-test natin. So ang pre-test natin is composed of two parts. So yung part 1 is a multiple choice 1 to 10, and then part 2 is matching type column A and then column B. So after natin sa pre-test, dito na tayo sa ating topic number 1, which is about power supply. So computer hardware is a physical part of a computer. Internal hardware is the hardware inside the computer or is a device that is installed within the computer. So when referring to a drive, an internal drive is any drive inside the computer. So sinasabi dito na we're going to start our lesson about the computer hardware parts. So lahat ng tangible materials, whether inside or outside of the computer system unit, so yun ay yung tinatawag natin na computer hardware parts. So dito tayo sa topic 1, which is the power supply. So for the objective about this lesson, about this topic, so we're going to identify the use of the power supply, recognize the significance of power supply, and number 3 is to demonstrate the step in connecting the power supply cables to different drives and mainboard. So ito yung papakita dito sa module, yung iba't ibang illustration kung saan kinakabit or yung mga different hardware parts, including power supply. Meron tayong optical disk drive, ODD, meron tayong floppy disk drive, FDD, meron tayong hard disk drive or HDD, and then the main board, which is the motherboard. So some of these are wala na dun sa system or napalitan na. For example, yung floppy disk drive. So since hindi na naman tayo gumagamit ng floppy disk, so inalis na siya dun sa different parts of computer hardware parts. Although kasama pa rin talaga siya dun sa parts, pero na-limit na siya. So a power supply unit or PSU converts main AC or the alternative current to low voltage regulated direct current power for the internal components of a computer. So bakit kailangan nang i-convert yung AC to DC? So kasi meron tayong iba't ibang parts na hindi naman 220 volts ang kailangan. So meron tayong mga 3.5 volts lang. For example, yung ating main board, for example, kailangan niya lang is 1.5 volts. So kailangan niyang i-convert yung ating AC to DC power. So ang ating unang pin na makikita dun sa ating power supply ay tinatawag na 20-pin Molex ATX power connection. So bakit Molex? So usually, kung sino yung unang nakagawa or naka-invent, sa kanila sinusunod yung pangalan. So itong 20-pin Molex, yung Molex is a name of the company. So this 20-pin Molex ATX power connection is used to give supply to a motherboard. So makikita nyo yung illustration sa gilid kung ano nga ba yung itsura niya. So nandito yun sa illustration, yung 20-pin Molex na nagbibigay ng supply sa ating motherboard. Next is meron naman tayong 4-pin Molex P4 12 volts. So ito namang P4 connection is a 12 volts power supply cable used with motherboard that have a Intel Pentium 4 or later processor. So nag-iiba-iba pa pala yung cable na gagamitin sa kanya or yung voltage na gagamitin, depende kung ano yung processor na meron naka-install dun sa ating motherboard. So tandaan na hindi sila pare-pareho. So pangatlo is yung 4-pin Berg connector. So nag-iba na yung pangalan, Berg na siya. Kasi another company na naman or electronics company na naman ang naka-invent, kaya pinangalan ulit sa kanila. So it is used with a computer power supply that connected to a floppy disk drive. So sa floppy disk drive naman siya, makikita mo yung illustration kung anong itsura. Next is yung SATA connector. So ang SATA naman ay pinaikling pangalan sa Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, which is for SATA. It is a computer bus interface that connects host bus adapter to the mass storage device such as hard disk drive, optical drive, and solid state drive. So sa kanya naman ikino-connect simula dun sa host bus adapter papunta dun sa mass storage device, which are hard disk drive, optical drive, and the solid state drive. So yun yung SATA connector. Next is yung 4-pin Molex connector. This is used to power various components including hard disk drive and optical disk drive. So kanina, yung 4-pin Berg para lang siya sa floppy disk drive. Ito naman na 4-pin Molex para naman siya sa hard disk drive and then sa ating optical disk drive. So after ng lesson na to, meron na tayo ditong check your understanding 1. So ito yung unang activity na gagawin nyo. It's composed of 10 items. You're going to write true if the underlined words are correct and change the underlined word if false. So, ibig sabihin, kung may naka-underline na word, kung yung naka-underline word ay tama, true. Kung mali, kailangan yung ibigay yung tamang sagot, hindi lang false ang ilalagay nyo. So ganun guys sa 1 to 10. Dito na tayo sa topic number 2, which is about motherboard or the main system board na naka-install sa ating computer system unit. So for this objective, we're going to identify the use of power supply, recognize the significance of power supply, and then demonstrate the step in connecting the power supply cable to different drives and mainboard. So mas maganda sana tong topic na to kapag naka face to face tayo, kasi dun sa classroom natin kumpleto tayo dun ng iba't ibang hardware parts. So mapapakita ko sa inyo hand to hand, makikita nyo, mahahawakan nyo yung iba't ibang parts or paano nga ba ikabit yung different cables and different peripherals na kailangan pang i-install dito sa ating motherboard. So a motherboard is one of the most essential part of a computer system. So siya talaga yung essential part. It is a sheet of plastic that holds all the circuitry to connect the various components of a computer system. It is motherboard which contain a number of socket and slot to connect the other components. So, lahat ng components na kailangan to run a system ay sa motherboard lahat naka-installed or naka-connect. So, dito tayo sa parts of a motherboard. Number 1 is yung processor socket. Processor socket. Ibig sabihin, sa kanya inilalagay or ini-install yung Central Processing Unit natin or CPU na tinatawag. Tandaan na ang CPU is only a part of a motherboard. So, hindi siya kailangan. So, isa sa mga wrong term na lagi kong napapansin sa mga kabataan is yung system unit, madalas tinatawag na CPU, which is wrong. Kasi ang CPU is only a Central Processing Unit na part lang siya ng motherboard. So laging tatandaan nyo na ang correct term para dun sa box na nakikita nyo na ino-open natin kapag ang gamit natin is a desktop computer, ang tawag sa kanya ay system unit. So number 2 part is the power connector. So yung power connector magdedepende kung anong klase ng processor meron yung motherboard. So allows an electrical current to pass through it for the exclusive purpose of providing power to a devices. So meron tayong dalawang uri ng power connector. Meron tayong yung 4-pin, meron naman tayo yung pahaba, 20-pin. Next is yung memory slot. So memory slot na makikita natin sa ating motherboard, usually 4 yan. Pwedeng blue, black, and then merong yellow, blue, merong pareho lang na black lahat. So it is the allows the computer memory, yung RAM na tinatawag, or random access memory, to be inserted into the computer. So, depending on the motherboard, there will usually be 2 to 4 memory slot. So, yun yung sabi ko kanina, usually 4 ang slot na meron ang isang motherboard para sa RAM. Next is yung video card slot. So, meron din tayong video card. Although, meron tayong motherboard na may naka default bit para niya sa video, syempre yung iba na nag-upgrade ng or naglalagay ng video card is para mas maganda or mas malinaw talaga yung graphics, lalo na kapag ikaw ay isa sa mga user na madalas na gumagamit ng games sa editing, video animation, video or filming. Kailangan mo ng maganda or mataas na video card. So, meron tayong video card slot. Another is yung IDE and SATA port. So, IDE stand for Integrated Drive Electronics, and then SATA, Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. So, a standard interface for connecting a motherboard to storage devices such as hard drives and CD-ROM DVD drives. So, para sa kanya yon. Next is meron tayong BIOS, chip, and battery. So, BIOS, ano ibig sabihin ng BIOS? Basic Input and Output System. And then, CMOS naman, Complementary Metal Oxide Semiconductor. So, tandaan nyo class, yung iba't ibang shortcut na ginagamit natin, ha? Medyo marami yan. So, ito namang BIOS chip and battery, they set up the computer and boot the operating system. So, next is meron tayong yung motherboard natin is nahati yun into 2, the North Bridge and the South Bridge. So, kapag hanapin nyo kung ano yung North Bridge doon, basta kailangan ang makikita nyo sa part na yon, coordinate the flow of data between CPU, Central Processing Unit, yung graphics part, and then yung RAM. So, pag nakita mo yung tatlong yun na magkakatabi, hanapin mo dun sa motherboard, yun yung North Bridge. Sa South Bridge naman, nandun lahat yung mga input and output functions. So, huwag tayong malilito ha. Meron din tayong front panel. It is where the connectors of hard disk drive, activity lights, case, speaker, reset button, power on off button, computer power or light, and then key lock, sa kanya lahat naka-connect. Mapapansin mo yun, laging nasa pinakagilid, nasa pinakakanto. So, medyo mga 3 inches na makikita mo na may mga pin na dun mo sasaksak yung iba't ibang indicators. And then last natin is yung rear connectors. Yung rear connection nasa pinakagilid yun, makikita mo yun yung nakalabas or nakausli sa likod ng desktop natin. So nasa kanya lahat ng ports na pagpapasukan mo ng kable. Tandaan na, so ano yung mga ports na naandun. Mako-connect natin yung mga external devices such as the monitor, speaker, keyboard, and the mouse. So after ng lesson na to, activity number 1. So draw your own aesthetic design of motherboard showing the complete parts of it. Ask for a help of one of the member of the family. So for example, para madali na lang, for example, you will have given a chance to design your own motherboard. So, ikaw yung gagawa ng sarili mong motherboard na design. So, meron tayong mga example pictures sa internet. Pwede kayo mag-browse. Pero, not necessary na kailangan gayahin nyo siya. So, for your aesthetic design, ibig sabihin kanya-kanyang design. Ito-drawing nyo. Activity number 2 natin is give the importance of the lesson in a part of motherboard. So, para tong flower na type na graph. So, nasa gitna importance of the lesson in motherboard, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, magbibigay kayo ng 6 na importance ng parts ng motherboard. So, 3 na tayo ha. Pangatlong activity na yon. Pang-4 na activity, check your understanding 2. So, identification 1 to 10, ibibigay mo lang kung ano yung hinihingi ng ina-identify ng questions. So, dito na tayo sa last topic natin para sa module 4, which is about cables and connectors. So, objective natin, identify the ports and cable used in computer, give importance in the function of ports and cables, and then demonstrate a step in connecting the cables of ports in a computer. So, meron tayong iba't ibang type ng ports and then may function sila. So, yung port, external connecting socket. Ang cables naman, most often 2 or more wires running side by side of a bonded, twisted, or braided together to form a single assembly. So, yung port yung pinapasukan ng kable. Type of ports, meron tayong serial port, intended for serial type mouse and older camera. So, ito yung itsura niya. Pangalawa, meron tayong parallel port naman, also called as the printer port. This is only for old model printer. Usually, lahat to may mga phase out na talaga kasi karaniwan ang ginagamit na port na lang ngayon is yung USB port na tinatawag. And then, karaniwan, USB cable na lang din. Pero kailangan na ma-discuss pa rin natin yung history. So, meron tayong VGA or yung Video Graphics Array. Sa VGA naman, sinasaksak yung monitor natin or any display device. Pwede maging projector or monitors. Next is yung USB or short for Universal Serial Bus. So, it is a high-speed serial interface that is used with almost all devices. So, sabi ko nga, ito na yung mas karaniwan ang ginagamit ngayon. Meron pa rin naman tayong PS2 or port, yung violet and then green, para sa kanya yung keyboard and then mouse. Meron tayong power port, itong power port, lahat meron kayo para dito. So, intended para siya sa power cord. Meron tayong S video port, ginagamit siya para sa pag-display ng video devices and offer a higher level of video performance over composite video signal. And then yung tatlo na audio port. Meron tayong audio port, yung blue, green, and pink. Intended for plugging in a speaker or headset. And then the last one is yung local area port, which is the LAN port. Para naman siya intended siya para sa ating internet cable. So dito na tayo sa types of cables. So ang type ng cables natin, meron tayong PS2 jack. Kung kanina meron tayong PS2 port, meron tayong PS2 jack. Intended para siya sa keyboard and mouse. Meron tayong audio jack. Saan tayo ang audio? Intended for audio and microphone. Meron tayong S video jack, obviously for S video port. So magkakapareho lang, may mga pangalan nila, nagkaiba lang, jack, cable, and then yung kabila puro port ang dulo. Then meron tayong the monitor jack o yung VGA port, ay VGA cable para siya sa VGA port, yung kulay blue. And then yung USB plug, intended siya para sa USB port. So lahat ng mga modern and new model of peripherals usually USB type na. Meron din tayong printer cable jack, intended for parallel port. Yung parallel, yung medyo mahaba. And then yung RJ45, para siya dun sa RJ is shortened for register jack, para siya dun sa Ethernet port or yung LAN port na tinatawag. And then the last one is the power cord, the most important cord because it connects the computer to the main source of electricity to make it functional. So yun yung pinaka last type ng cable or cord meron tayo, which is the power cord. So after ng lesson na to, meron ulit tayong activity. Activity number 1, 1 to 8 lang to. I-identify nyo lang yung iba't ibang names ng cables na given dito sa module. Next is yung check your understanding tree, 1 to 5. 1 to 10 siya, yung first part, 1 to 5 is multiple choice, and then second type, true or false ulit. Ilalagay nyo yung true kapag yung statement is correct, kapag false naman, yung naka-underline na word, kailangan nyo daw itama. 6 to 10. And then after that, dito na tayo sa post-test natin. Post-test natin is composed of 3 parts. Yung part 1 is true or false, 1 to 5. And then part 2 multiple choice, 6 to 10, and then part 3 is matching type, column A to column B. So yan yung end na ng lesson natin for the module 4, which is about let's get physical. So